Hey friends, welcome to the channel. Today we're digging into the two most powerful intervals in rock guitar. I'm going to show you how the great masters like Keith Richards and Mark Knopfler turn these intervals into amazing riffs and licks. The most powerful sounds on the guitar are fourths and fifths, and the cool thing is they're interchangeable. A fourth is simply an upside down fifth, so they're basically just inversions of each other. So anything you can play with fifths, you can play with fourths. And that becomes incredibly powerful as you mix those two things together. So fifths or power chords just sound like this. And then fourths sound like this. So one of the cool things you can do with fourths and fifths is you can actually map them onto your scale. So it's always good to start with the pentatonic scale or the blues scale. And when you're mapping fourths and fifths onto that scale, you're going to do it like this. So here's the basic scale. So for the first two, you're going to do power chords. Then you're going to do fourths on the next two sets of strings. Like, you know the classic song, right? Let's listen to Richie talking about it.
A lot of people play it this way. Which is not correct. It's played in fourths, rigid fourths, which is going back to the medieval times. That's how they played a lot of shorn parts, was parallel fourths. So now you have.
So you see right there, anything that you can play in power chords, you can play in fourths as well. And when you look at the theory behind that, the basic idea there is if you play a power chord, it's like this. And then sitting on top of that is a fourth. So you can kind of mix it up, right? Now, the reason it sounds good on the first two chords of the pentatonic scale when you're mapping the intervals over the pentatonic scale is because the power chord, the fifth, is the strongest sound. There's no tension on that interval at all. But when you go to the minor third, if you play a fourth on top of that, it gives you that sound, which is very dissonant because it's got a minor sixth in it. So it sounds better to go to get those first two power chords. Then for the next two notes, use fourths. Next two notes, use fourths again. So you can map it right over the scale. Now, the guitar is tuned in fourths. So when you just bar across, it gives you a fourth if you just flatten your finger. However, the tuning on the guitar is interrupted over the G and the B strings, and it's moved back one fret. So when you go to that same shape right there on the G and B strings, it gives you a major third. Because the way the guitar's tuned is designed to be tuned in fourths, but the last two strings are moved over so that when you bar across, the note that you begin on and the note that you end on is the same note. So when you're playing scales and chords, keeps everything nice and tight. So a good example of a player who uses fourths a lot is Keith Richards. So if you go over to our website, actually, we've got this resource for you on the website. So if you go to evergladesrhythm.com right here, we've got our Guitar Legends directory, and you can just click down. There's a bunch of different links and clicks and all this, and you can basically use this if you're kind of like wanting to study or just kind of do a deep dive or go down the rabbit hole of guitar players. So we've got all these different players here that we talk about on the channel, but Keith Richards is right here, and you can kind of just click on his, you know, some of his notable works or the instruments that he uses and so on. Right here, this is a great example of this song, Can You Hear Me Knocking? You can look at the tab there, or we can take a listen to it. So that song is one of the coolest sounding riffs. Now, of course, Keith Richards actually tunes his guitar to an open G, so this A string is tuned down a whole step. Now, what that actually gives you is when you tune that down a whole step, it's a perfect fifth. You've got a power chord right there. So now the cool thing about that is when you tune to that tuning, you've got power chords right here on the fifth string, Then you've got fourths on the fourth and third strings. And then you've got thirds on the third and second strings. So you've got power chords, fourths, and then thirds. So it has a killer sound. So the advantage of that is when you want to play power chords, you can just bar your finger across there and you can get that Keith Richards sounds just with one finger like that. But then you can also get those cool fourths right there on the middle strings. And then you got the thirds on top. So I use this technique in a song on our new record, Evangeline. In fact, I've got it right here. Check this out. Unboxing it, it just arrived today. And this is really cool. It's always great to listen to music on vinyl because vinyl is way more dynamic than CDs. Maybe 15-20% more dynamic, sounds a lot better. And here is Evangeline on vinyl, mastered by Robbie Burrell here in Nashville. So check it out, it's going to be on the website, and it's all swamp rock songs. I'm using a lot of these kind of effects on this, so check it out if you want to get a copy. I'll show you this tune from Evangeline. And I use exactly this kind of Keith Richards, Mark Knopfler style. And you can go to the website if you want to listen to it as well. The song's called Backwater Showdown. So I just use that lick. It's in the key of G, and I'm tuned to standard tuning, but I've dropped this A string down to a G. So we've got our power chord right there. And then all the licks in this song, I'm just either using that power chord or just these flat fingers. So it's kind of Keith Richards style. Alright, so let me put it back in standard tuning for a second. So the idea is you can play licks and scales, but you can just essentially flatten your fingers. And, you know, Chuck Berry did this a lot. You know, he would play licks like... And all you're doing basically is you're flattening your finger and you're playing these intervals of fourths or major thirds. So using these intervals is a great way to create that powerful sound in your playing.